So actually, before the real thing starts, I have to congratulate all of you for really having this first webinar, a very important topic, very symbolic of what WANA could do in the region and tell the world what public opinion is about. So congratulations. Nice job.
Thank you, Robert, as well. This is a dream for us to have some activities with WANA chapter. So thanks to Dr. Munqith and all the team in the region to start activating the chapter finally. Thank you.
Yeah. And the timing is just perfect, you know, with all what is going on right now. I think all the world is paying an attention to what's going on in the region right now.
Yes, indeed. Right. Do, if you have time, whether it's on camera or after the webinar, invite whoever's attended to join the WAPOR, at least as a friend first, because that would be just $10 for a year and 2 months. And consider becoming a member of the chapter of WAPOR later on. Just grab some connections and we make WANA grow. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea, Robert. Thank you.
Yes.
I see Bilal as well there. And
right.
Bilal, how are you doing, Bilal? Pakistan.
Yeah, Pakistan.
Finished a survey with Indiana University with Bilal.
Yeah. I guess it's almost time. We have 67 audience waiting. So Munqith, if you said this is about time, then we will start. And
yes.
They will see our faces.
Yep. Okay. We are ready.
Okay, I'm ready too.
Okay, can you proceed,
yes.
Please?
Okay, so Isabella, is this on? Is the video on now?
Yes.
I think.
It is on, and the webinar is already being recorded.
Okay, I don't see all the faces. I only see panelists. But in any case, I am assuming that everybody joining a seminar or webinar actually sees us. So let me start today's webinar. I will have to say, I have a mixed feeling of today's webinar. Of course, on the very positive side, I'm very happy to see this webinar hosted by WANA, which is actually the first major activity of the chapter. But my heart is also pretty heavy because what we are going to share or discuss tonight or today is actually the world at war or societies at war. Of course, if we're talking about public opinion in the war zone across a wild area, and people are fighting. So the topic itself is important, but it is also sad to see people fighting. But in any case, let me start by congratulating my colleagues in WANA. I still remember it was 6 years ago in Marrakesh, in a WAPOR conference then, that I discussed with Samir and other friends who were interested in starting a WANA chapter. So really make a lot of discussion, preparation, and then the next year in Toronto, WANA started. I mean, WAPOR Global approved the establishment of WANA. Unfortunately, many years has passed, I think mainly because of the COVID, the pandemics, and it interrupted everything around the world. So WANA didn't really develop very fast because of that sudden mishap. But well, 2 years ago in Salzburg, we met again, and everybody was keen to revitalize WANA, and really everybody works hard. And today we are seeing WANA having the first webinar on a very important topic. This is a good start, and I will hope that after this webinar, many of you who are joining us for the sharing, presentation, and discussions. We'll continue to support WANA and stay close with WANA. We will have more activities. And obviously, WANA, I hope, will be soon running a conference because conferences are important. I mean, face-to-face conferences. But let's wait and see. But those of you who have joined this webinar, please stay close to WANA and with WAPOR. Now, I think my role tonight is really timekeeping and sort of a traffic warden. And Munqith is the president, so he knows all the speakers, everything. So the panelists, other panelists are really should be in control of the discussion. I hope it will be a nice discussion. I just like to take this opportunity to introduce the speakers.
Sorry, Robert.
Yes.
Sorry, Robert. I just want to announce that there is an Arabic translation.
Yes.
So I will tell them in Arabic because I can see that there are some Arabic speakers audiences and they might need this interpretation. So
yes,
please allow me for
sure.
just 1 minute. السلام عليكم جميعا للمتحدثين باللغة العربية. بإمكانكم أن تستمعون إلى الترجمة. أكو ترجمة فورية. تروحون على مور. أكو بالخيارات الجوة تحت أكو مور. تضغطون على مور. أكو كلمة interpretation. على كلمة interpretation تختارون الترجمة العربية اللغة العربية وتستمعون إلى الترجمة. شكرا. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, you can proceed.
Thank you, Munqith. Yes, thanks for stepping in. For those of us listening to English, probably do not need to click on the interpretation icon, but for Arabic people, friends, Munqith has explained. I think I should introduce the general rundown of today's webinar by saying that we have three very important presenters, and the order of their presentation will be Dr. Munqith Dagher and Nader Saeed and Samir Abu Rumman. I will introduce them very briefly now, because they will be splitting their presentation using the same PowerPoint, but part by part. So let me introduce now our first speaker, who is, you know very well, the president of our WANA chapter, Dr. Munqith Dagher. Munqith is the president of WANA. He had conducted Iraq's first ever public opinion poll. And since that time, he has been responsible for undertaking over 2 million interviews for a wide range of agencies and topics. Munqith established the IIACSS in 2003 while he was a professor of public administration strategic management at Baghdad University. He has lectured and published widely in different countries. He's one of the most cited and referred sources in public opinion in Iraq and the Arab world. In 2015, he was awarded the Guinea Valentine Badge of Courage for bravery in keeping research alive in multiple conflict zones from the Research Liberation Front. In 2018, he became a board member and director of MENA region in Gallup International. In 2021, he became the advisor of the Prime Minister in Iraq for a year. And then in 2024, he became our WANA, or West Asia and North Africa chapter president of WAPOR. So that's Munqith. I will go straight to the second speaker, who is Dr. Nader Saeed. Nader is the professor of sociology and founder of the president of the AWRAD, meaning Arab World for Research and Development, which does research in Palestine and across the MENA region. He has been working in and developing the field of polling in the region for more than 3 decades. His work on 4 exit polls in Palestinian elections was considered groundbreaking in social sciences within the Arab region, and that region includes Palestine, Libya, Yemen, Jordan, Lebanon, Qatar, Oman, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, and Pakistan. Through his work, he has created a culture of polling and democracy. His survey conducted in Palestine and the region have been widely cited by government and non-government professionals, reputable newspapers, and periodicals. His polls have addressed some of the most sensitive contemporary issues, such as the ongoing peace process, as well as the daily life of Palestinians in a manner designed to accommodate changing circumstances. Our third presenter in the role will be Dr. Samir Abu Rumman. Samir is the supervisor of the World of Opinion of Kuwait, Jordan, and the United States. He is a former visiting scholar at Princeton University and currently a visiting professor at George Mason. He writes for media outlets such as Al Jazeera and Al Anbar, and he is the past president of WANA WAPOR, our chapter, and he serves as an NGO representative at the United Nations. I would like to add that I mentioned that already. 6 years ago, I met Samir and many friends from the WANA region to discuss the formation of the WAPOR chapter. Now, ever since then, Samir has helped a lot in establishing and developing the chapter. As I said, unfortunately, due to the onset of the COVID pandemic, that work was severely hindered. But 2 years ago in Salzburg, we revived WANA with Samir and many friends you see. And after serious discussions on-site and online, I'm very glad to see Samir still actively helping WANA, and we are seeing a very active new WANA tonight. So these are the introduction of the speakers, and I would now call on our first speaker, Munqith, to give his presentation using a silent PowerPoint. And after a few slides, please pass on to Nader and then pass on to Samir. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you for the audience for attending the first research activity of WANA. As my colleagues and Robert said earlier, we have been struggling now for a long time to conduct the first activity for West Asia, North Africa chapter in WAPOR, and I'm so happy, so proud, and so thankful for all my colleagues to turn that dream to reality. This survey that we will present today is not unique and unprecedented because it covers 9 countries in the most related region in the world to Gaza war only, but because it traces the trend of public opinion in that region regarding one of the most bloodiest war in the current time. Unfortunately, we are living in a world with a lot of wars right now. The last report that I read, we have 56 wars currently in the entire world. 94 countries involved in these wars. One of these wars is the Gaza war, which is started after Hamas launched its attack on the 7th of October 2023. Just a week after that, we have conducted the first survey about the war, to investigate the public opinion in the region toward that war. And just a month ago, we have launched the second survey with the same questions to trace the changes in the trend or the trend of public opinion. As all professionals knows that trends in our work in public opinion survey is the most important issue to understand public opinion. This is why this presentation will cover not just one cross-countries survey, but two surveys. The first survey has conducted in 6 countries. As you can see, the first survey here in 2023, in 6 countries. It was in Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt. And the second survey, which we just finished 2 days ago or 3 days ago, we have been able to have more countries. So this last survey had Iraq, Jordan, Libya, Palestine, Pakistan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt, with a total sample of almost 7,000 respondents. And you can see the methodologies that used in each country mostly.
I'm sorry to cut you in, but the presentation is not shared. We cannot see anything.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me see why it's not shared. Okay. Is it clear now?
Yes, we can now see you.
Okay. Sorry for that.
Yeah,
So
no
we have 2 surveys. As I've told you, the first one was on 2023, just 2 weeks after 7th of October 2023, and we had Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt at that time. And this time we have been able to have more countries. So this time we have Iraq, Jordan, Libya, Palestine, Pakistan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt. The methodologies used are mixed of CAPI, computer-assisted personal interviews, and CATI, in some countries, computer-assisted telephone interviews. The main takeaway, I will go through it very quickly so I can give my other 2 colleagues the opportunity to go through it in more details. The survey, compared to the same survey conducted a year ago, the majority, over 70%, still believe that Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023 was to defend Palestinian rights, such as liberation from occupation, protection of Al-Aqsa Mosque, or halting settlement expansion. Meanwhile, only about 20% of respondents attributed the attack to reasons related to halting the peace process or serving the own goals of Hamas or Iran. So the narrative here, the public opinion narrative here, is that Hamas attack was to defend the Palestinian rights. Although trust in Hamas has declined from what it was immediately after its attacks on October 7th, 2023, it remains high. it was 73%. It's now 62%. However, the trust in Hezbollah and Iran has significantly decreased. In Hezbollah, it decreased from 53% on 2023 to 39% currently. And for Iran, it was from 37% at that time, a year ago, to 27% right now. Of course, trust in the United States remains among the public opinion in the region very low. It was 7%. Right now, it's 9%. Usually, the public opinion in the region toward the United States, especially when it comes to the Palestinian issue, it's very low. The only minority still believe that this war is between Hamas and Israel, while the overwhelming majority, almost 3 in 4, describe it as either a war between the West and Islam, or between Israel and Arabs, or between Israel and Palestinians. So it's the narrative, the media narrative that it's between Hamas and Israel does not agree on it among the public opinion in this region. Regarding the significant American and Western support for Israel in its war in Gaza, only a small minority, 11%, believe that this support was given to Israel for humanitarian reasons. The rest believe that American and Western support is driven by hatred toward Muslims or the strong influence of the Zionist lobby. Again, we have two narratives, the narrative of the international media and the narrative among Arabs and Muslims in general in the region. As for the authority, that the citizens of those countries prefer to see governing Gaza after the war, 38% would like to see a unified Palestinian National Authority, while 31% prefer the authority of the Palestine Authority in Ramallah. Only 18% prefer an authority controlled by Hamas if the war is ended. Regarding the media sources from which people in those countries obtain their information about the war in Gaza, social media platforms were the top source, 51%, followed by satellite television channels, 34%. And this might explain why we have two different narratives, the international or global media narrative and the narrative embraced by Arabs and Muslims in the region. I will now give the floor to my colleague and friend from Palestine, Dr. Nader Saeed, to highlight more of these results. Thank you, Nader.
Thank you. Next slide, please. You have the slides.
Yeah.
So you just wanna, in any case, until we get the slide, thank you so much.
You have the slide?
Now it's here. Yes, thank you. No, let me start by, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. But as Robert said, we cannot be celebrating anniversaries, because as we speak now, actual people and human beings are being slaughtered in many places, but mostly in the north of Gaza and places in Lebanon. So we cannot just pretend that this is about numbers and it's about findings, about sentiments. It's about reality, and people are actually in the middle of it. And we cannot pretend that it's okay and that we're just doing a research. And at some point we have WAPOR has to ask itself really, and it's something that will be, discussed at some point, is, what do we stand for, and what do we really want, and what's our position of all of this justice, injustice issue, because you just cannot be neutral as quote unquote neutral. So that's one issue. The other issue that we need to discuss maybe in next WAPOR in a session is the notion that we are working on here, is the whole notion that we in AWRAD are working on now is what we would think of as resilient polling, resilient opinion polling. That goes beyond, conflict and non-conflict. You're looking at situations of genocide, you're looking at extreme conditions, and there is so much to learn from the Iraqi experience, from the Syrian experience, from, we wish we didn't have any of these experiences, but also in Africa and Latin America and so on. So this is the overall, and I have to remind us that there are great variations between the countries, as you will be seeing a couple of examples. Some of them are, sampling and non-sampling, but there is much more to it. So we have to think about that. And at the end, the most important opinion, if you want the truth, is that of people in Gaza. And that's why I'm happy to, later talk about how, Gaza is different from any other place when it comes to this issue at this point of time. As my colleague Munqith said, is that again, while the Western media and everyone is trying to paint this as one way, but as you can see, even the majority is still, and they continue to think that the core issues are not resolved, and there are real rooted reasons. So this did not start in October 7 at all. It started in 1948 and before that, and it continues as a colonization of people and countries. So we can pretend that we don't know the history, and we can think that this is just starting now. And but we understand the Western narrative, and we have our own narrative, as Dr. Munqith was saying. So if you look at this slide, it would just say very clearly that the largest issues are real issues, the freedom of Palestine, stopping the violations against Al-Aqsa, settlement issues, ability of Palestinians to leave and move from their land grab, restrictions on roads. So all of these issues are real issues. And I think the common wisdom in all these countries, Arab and Islamic countries, just shows that people understand, as much as we try to create a facade around it, whether it's Hamas or terrorism or Islamism or any of that, the real issues are to be dealt with one way or another. And as you can see, most people understand that this is the case. When it comes to personal or partisan benefits, of course, some people feel that, because it's normal that each political party would come in with its own agenda, and they try to do what they feel is more important. So that's one slide. The second slide, which is Munqith, if you can go to the next slide, please. I'm sorry I'm bothering you with this, but I don't have it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So again, this is a question about trust, basically. I'm not sure if it's about confidence, it's more about trust. So as you can see, even with time, and this is a long time because it's so extensive, a year that we have to go through and people in Gaza have to go through, it's worth 100 years of a nightmare, basically. So even with time, still the majority of the population that was polled basically still trusts Hamas. And as you can see, 62%, which is a majority, coming down from 73. And here I will say two things. One is, people are evaluating and assessing their trust and their confidence in Hamas from 2 points of view. One is political, which is, talking about Palestine and historic Palestine, and although they had changes in their agenda, but it's also their focus on, that, right is right, that, we have to have justice in this place, and we have to have resistance of all types that the internet. So people are looking at their agenda, but they're also looking at their technical capacities. Most people are looking at this small group in very small place with very small resources, really, but still technically also it's doing well. So people who are not necessarily sharing their political views. They're saying, but it seems it's like, you know, a good organization. They know how to organize, they know how to defend, and most of all, you know, the words, the actions, and much more, most of all, which my colleague Samir will come to, the vigilance, the communication, and the ability of the media part of Hamas is their ability to showcase the victories and the minutes of heroism, including, of course, the latest of which it's becoming more and more sort of mythical, you know, and it's the, you know, it's how the leader of Hamas was killed basically in a fight. So this mythical sort of approach around Hamas is going to be long term. So it's not just about opinion polling now. It's about what these moves that come from the West, from Israel, from, you know, what does it mean to the culture in the region? What does it enforce? And as you will see, when Samir talks about, you know, this type, what is this fight about, basically? You know, most people are becoming, instead of being secular and being globalists and being humanists, they are drawn into this culture of wars that started in the West, basically, and it trickled down to this place. The last slide I will talk about, if you don't mind, is just to give you an example of variation. Because again, there is a great deal of variation, although, you know, most Arab populations are similar, but there are some variations for reasons that I'm sure my colleagues can talk about. But for example, when it comes, you know, with all the trust for Hamas, and that's why I'm saying is that we have to differentiate between, for example, people in Gaza saying, 80% saying that they trust the UN to distribute humanitarian assistance. Okay. But like 2% would say Hamas. But this is not necessarily an acceptance or non-acceptance of their political agenda or technical capacity. It's more about the timing. It's more about where they are. It's about their capacity. It's about not having any ministries or institutions anyway in Gaza. So they know that they became more and more dependent and reliant internationally. But in general, with all of this, 19%, as you can see, on average, in the 7 countries we reviewed, 19% saying they trust Hamas to manage, you know, to govern Gaza after the war. 31% trust the Palestinian National Authority based in Ramallah, basically to do that, although its ministries are also in Gaza. And then, you know, a national unity government, which is about 38%. I'm not sure in what context, because each country has a different understanding of what a national unity. In Palestine, it's very clear, you know, because of, you know, the division we had at that time. There are variations among countries, as you can see. I'm not going to dwell too much on them, really. But, you know, there are some, like, for example, when it comes to a government controlled by Hamas, we look at Lebanon, 58%. In part, I think it's sampling, but in part, it must reflect something, especially now, you know, with the conditions in Lebanon. In Libya, you will find that it is about 6%. What does that mean? We will, you know, our colleague Nidal might say something, maybe it is in part margin of error, in part something else. But again, each country has a different context to it. Same thing with the Palestinian Authority. You know, it seems, for example, the noise and the criticism of the PA, the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, is heard very well in the Arab region, especially through Al Jazeera all the time, but it's not necessarily in the Islamic world. So as you can see, there is a very interesting, you know, dichotomy here or so. You know, for example, in Gaza, for the PA, 51%, which is like the highest of all, almost, except for Egypt as well. So the countries are interesting, that where this is coming from. Israeli government, of course not, you know, it's not an option. It's not, I don't know why we even have it here. But, you know, reality is going to be reality, and we will see what kind of combination of settings. And again, as I said, you know, my colleagues will be happy to answer questions about their countries. But again, I would be happy to talk about the variance between Gaza, West Bank, because they seem to be now at this stage very varying dynamics, very varying, highly varying sort of way of thinking about all of this because of the genocide that's going on. Thank you, and I will leave it now to my very good colleague and friend Samir Abu Rumman. Dr. Samir, تفضل حبيبي. and then we'll get his slide.
Thank you, Nader. Thank you,
Slide.
Munqith. Thanks to everyone, and happy to see a lot of our WAPOR family, and Robert, I'm sure he's happy that we are holding and organizing this webinar, even that we are talking about actually tragic numbers, and it's 1 year of a very hard conflict. I'm presenting 3 slides. To be honest, 2 slides, I'm very, very sad that I am presenting the result. And the 3rd slide is just something some of you might find interesting. I'm Samir Abu Rumman. I covered Kuwait, but I'm presenting now all of the 9 countries. And I think 9 countries, when I look at the 9 countries, we have different part of the Arab world mainly, and we have Pakistan and Islamic world. And this is something I think represent, even if it's 9 countries, what really the Muslims and the Arab people thinking, which is what I'm talking about. This slide that people, small people, minority of people think it's just a conflict between only Hamas and Israel. And this is something, as Munqith said, not what is shown in the media. We don't see it as a Hamas, as the people in the numbers here. They don't see it as a Hamas and Israel war. And this is a war, and this is a bad, I think, result that it's raising the prejudice, I'm sorry to say that, between religious, that most of the people saying it as against Islam and Muslims. Even that we saw in the pre-testing around the world, Jewish, Christians with Gaza, but this is something that it's raising because maybe the people in the Muslim and Arab world feeling that they are left alone, or maybe because they think that the this conflict is related to more of the more than Palestine and Hamas. The other slide also, if you can jump in the other slide, also, when we ask people, what do you think the main reason that the Western countries and the United States are supporting Israel, we find a minority thinking that they are supporting for humanitarian issues. They thinking, most of the majorities in the Arab and Islamic world think that it is a hate for Islam and Muslim, or they are the influence of the lobby, Israel lobby in the United States and these Western countries, which is also had a high percentage, but it also reflects that we are talking about, I don't want to say a clash of civilization, but this war is bringing some ideas we really have to think about. The last slide, which is...
sorry to cut you on, Mr. Samir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We have requests.
Slide in the last slide, yeah. This is just the international sources and the media sources, media source for the respondents that we asked in the 9 countries. And as you can see, the average social media is growing and increasing for the people as a source of information on what's happening in Palestine. Thank you very much. You are muted, Rob.
Oh, yes, thank you. Now that our 3 speakers have all spoken, this might well be the discussion time. But I think if all of you, well, actually I see the panelists. I do not see in my Zoom screen participants, but it's fine because I have been looking at the chat, the questions and raised by the audience. I think if all the panelists could read those questions, comments, please try to answer them anytime you like. But I think before we proceed with the perhaps half an hour, a little bit more of discussion, I have myself a few questions to ask the panelists, because I think we're presenting a research. So in terms of research, especially public opinion research, we always care very much about, number one, of course, the methodology. And I'd like to hear a little bit of explanation about the methods. I think we see the CATI, or the basic methodology. But my question would be, as researchers, how much or how do you see the limitations of these opinion data in your country, in your countries, in your region, because you conduct a study? So there are bound to be methodological limitations, biases maybe. So that would be one question that as scientists probably it would be nice to tell people that how to read these data. The second question, of course, I think it is very legitimate for any researcher in the region and in any country to pick on information or questions which would be of interest to them. But there could be a higher reason for running some survey questions. In WAPOR, I mean, last annual conference, I think we did discuss quite a lot about the implication of opinion research on, say, under humanity, how to resolve conflicts. So we are seeing a war, and obviously the Gaza war has a lot of historical, cultural reasons. But how do you see these findings will help to mitigate the situation? Obviously, for the Arab barometers, we probably could not see data from the Israel society. But as researchers, you might probably be coming across the other side of the wall that maybe different people have different views. So how do you tackle these problems? So I'm just asking, one is really the methodological questions. Number two is really the usage of these data to perhaps mitigate conflicts. So if any one of you could share a little bit on that, that would be fine. But I don't want to take up too much of the discussion time because I think the floor probably have a lot of questions to ask. And I'm not quite sure whether they could ask directly by Zoom and hear their voice. But if they do, please raise your hand, I mean, on the screen and say your question. I would prefer you to have one or two words about yourself, who you are, and then we proceed. So I don't know technically how to handle the floor questions, but I raised a few issues, so maybe some of you could address those first, and then we open it to the floor. Would that be all right?
It's okay. I think I will talk about the first two questions, and maybe any of my colleagues who wants to add more on that or on the other questions, he will be more than welcome. The methodological issues in across countries survey is very complicated. As you know, public opinion surveys are so expensive, and all participants, they did these surveys for free just to elaborate and just to leverage the art of research in this region and understand the situation in the region. So they have to tackle this survey in both with two criteria. First, to guarantee good quality, and the second is to have a less expenses or less cost for them. So that's why you can see a mixture of CATI and CAPI research or survey. And it's very interesting for all experts, and maybe all those who are interested in public opinion survey in general, to notice that in the countries that have more problems, more struggles, and it involves more with wars like Iraq, like Syria, like Palestine, you can see that we used CAPI, computer-assisted personal interviews for those who are not from this profession. And why is that? Though it's more expensive, more consuming to times, but it guarantees better results. And especially that in this region, people are not trusted who might be on the other side of the line when CATI interviews or telephone interviews conducted. So they cannot trust, they are under big fears, suspicious, security threatened. So they don't answer those whom they cannot trust. While that's why we are sending our teams to the field with all difficulties, all risks that they take, and all costs that they cost to answer these questions. While in the more stable countries, CATI can be used and gives good results as well. But in general, it will be ideally better if we use the same methodology, but unfortunately, for practical reasons, we cannot do that. Before I will go to the second question, for these results and how can we use it to help decision makers in making better decisions regarding the wars and how to solve it, etc. As you can see, one of the most important findings from all the slides that we showed, that people in general are embracing different narratives than the global media narrative. So if and as someone who works for 21 years in public opinion survey in the most hot zone areas in this region, not only Iraq, but all other countries with wars, my recommendation to decision makers always is to listen to the public, not to the media only. Media is important, but it's not necessarily reflecting what people believe in. So as you can see, people are seeing or looking to this war as a cultural war between Islam and the West, or between Arabs and the West. And this will put more fuel on the war and will hinder the peace process. So we need to understand that how people look to that war, how to understand it from a different angle, so we can build and take a good decision. If anyone wants to have comments, he will be more, or she will be more than welcome to comment on that.
Hello, I will just clarify that if you would like to ask a question, just raise your hand. I see that Nader would like to speak. You can also ask questions in the chat, and we will do our best to reply them as quickly as possible. Nader, you may speak now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just, again, I fully respect Robert's curiosity and the broad question of challenges and relevance of polling in the region. And I think these are two very good topics that we can and should talk about. Maybe Munqith and Samir and Firas and all of us can think about for the next sort of WAPOR. But very, very quickly on this, again, you can't separate the conduct of polling from the political realities of each country. Very different from each other. They started polling in different times and so on. So again, whether it's the technical difficulties and the variation in the technical competence in doing polling, but much more actually, it's the freedom to do polling. So the level, the technical meticulousness and rigor of doing polling actually depends on how free or how controlled, directly and indirectly, in some of these countries. So the more control, the less democracy you have, the less relevant it becomes to people. It becomes relevant only to the decision makers who want to control people, basically. So it all depends on, that's why you mentioned in the very long bio that you mentioned, and I have no idea where you got it from, and I was like, just say a few things, but you said all of that. One of the things that we had to work on in Palestine is talk about the culture of polling as we were trying to build a state. So we wanted to use the chance of doing polling, which is as a democratic sort of transformation mechanism of the PA at the time. Now it's a different setting. Okay, so that again, there are technical issues, there are competence issues, there is the highly political versus partisan. Where do we stand as pollsters in our own countries, and what do we want in the long run? We want to be objective and non-biased and rigorous and all of that, for sure. But are we neutral? Most seem to be working for, so the people, or is it? So one has to be careful about, it's another discussion. It's a much more in-depth discussion. Right? But there are questions for us also on the side here. So if you want to take some of them.
Yeah.
Senior,
I think.
Should we go through? I'm sorry, but there are a lot of questions on the chat and on the Q&A, and I think if we can go one by one and then maybe try to answer as many as possible. So do you want to take that, or
I will go ahead with
okay. We'll try to keep it as quick as possible because we have a lot of questions, very interesting ones. The first question came, this is from the Q&A. What is a national unity government? That was one of the options that you gave to. So the question,
I think Nader can answer this question.
Yeah, I'm not sure how, people from different countries understood it within the Palestinian context because of the division that started in 2007. And Hamas took over in Gaza, and the PA was in the West Bank at the time. So our sort of understanding of that is basically for them to come together and form a national unity under sort of a parliament and so on. So it is, all these Palestinian factions that will come together hopefully at some point. So there are negotiations for reconciliation, but we're not there yet. On paper, there is a national sort of unity agreement, but in reality, but now again, it's a very different context now. That's not a huge issue at this point in time. It's mostly also wishful thinking because people everywhere like unity. They don't like people to work. So there is a buzzword here, but the implications are not, I think, understood fully in different places. Although we can see some differences in that sense that, even in Palestine here, in Gaza, you will find that less at this point of time, who only we can talk to, those who are included in the polling. Those who are excluded, we don't even know where they are. We don't know who, how many were killed, how many are out of the country, where they are disappearing, but much more the fear that people have. So someone was asking about the popularity of Hamas and why is it that people, would have confidence and trust, but not necessarily choose as a political affiliate. There's a question on that as well. And that's what I was trying to say. There is the political agenda and there is the technical issues now. There is a reality. In reality, in Gaza, Hamas is not on the ground, it's underground. So when you ask about daily life, they will not say Hamas is going to run the place, but also we have to remember something. that the majority of Gazans were never with Hamas, the majority. So Hamas had never, except on that one day, received more than 46% of the vote, not the popular support. So we have to always remember that in Gaza and in the West Bank, you know, Hamas never had a majority. In 2006, they had 46% of the popular vote, and Fatah had 44. So it was not 44, 42, I'm sorry. You know, so it was not that very different. So that's something that we need to think about. It's not, what we see now in terms of that specific issue is that in the dichotomy is related to where the occupation is, where the colonial power is. In the West Bank, you know, while we see decline in support for Hamas in Gaza, and it's something that we can't be sure about because we don't know, there is no way, and this is my sort of fatwa, if you want to say, we cannot at this point of time be able to capture the popularity of Hamas in Gaza. Zero chance. Whatever we say is not true. The only thing we can see is that Hamas is gaining popularity at a speeding level, at skyrocketing level in the West Bank, where Israel is, you know, occupying this place, you know, and quote unquote managing this place. So it is a very interesting dynamic where Israel is now has been in full control basically in the West Bank. Hamas is now gaining ground. And we can talk about that if you like.
Thank you. Okay,
there will be
thank you.
About that already. I read it, so there will be some question about that part, Mr.
Arwa, if you let me answer a question here from Amno, I think, can you share the question? And about the genocide, whether we use this term? No, we didn't use it at all. We are sticking with the professionalism and with how we formulate wording of questions. As professional, we cannot be biased towards any. So we used always unbiased terms and let people answer it in their own way.
There was a question, if we can later on share the set of questions that we asked and how long it took. I think it took about 10 minutes average for all, but we can share the questionnaire for all. And just again, another important note that the translation, Arabic, everything was done in unity between all Arabic countries to make sure that we have the same wording. Everything was the same for all the countries participating in this survey. The next question, could you please talk about the sampling and field work, particularly in Palestine? I would assume if someone just can 1 minute talk quickly about this because we're really out of time.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to our website, you will see how we do our polling now in Gaza specifically, and in the West Bank as well. So there is a full narration, full transparency with everything that we do. It's on site, it's on our website. We have dashboards, we have a full explanation of our overall methodology, but now our unfolding methodology. One, again, we are, again, as I said, we will have to talk, and at some point we'll do a presentation on this resilient polling that we're looking at, and it's part of life that we have to go through. And for you to do that, you have to have two elements. One is determination and rigor. You have to insist on being rigorous, but you also have to insist on doing it. So these two things have to come together. You have to improve your methodology. And as such, for example, it becomes just much more difficult. In trying to follow the population in Gaza and see how do we do sampling, you know, we have a team that works 24 hours in Gaza that follows where people are on a minute-by-minute basis as we speak now. And then we also use OCHA, we use all the UN. We think we have more updated information, but we use it as a basis. All the new maps that they have, you can find them on different UN sites. We know where the population is, but we know the population that we know. And this is why one has to be careful. We don't know who's underground. We don't know who was killed. We don't know who disappeared. We don't know who is who. We don't know who left the country. So there is so much in terms of the framing. But in terms of the process of selection, in terms of actually doing the polling, we do face-to-face. We've done phone interviewing once, it didn't work that well. We do face-to-face, people understand who we are, they understand where AWRAD comes from. So you have to build that confidence in the community, because everything is so sensitive, everything is so fragile. People are just not in the mood, they're totally fatigued and all of that. So it's a very tough place to do. But that's the same in the West Bank. In the West Bank, you have hundreds of roadblocks. Okay, you have areas where you have extreme tensions and violence by most of the occupation and all of that. So all of that is a very tough place, but you have to insist on doing systematic sampling, basing it on a framework, a population framework, and that's all what all of my colleagues were doing in their countries. These are, I mean, I see these questions and I understand some of their background. Not everyone has the same intentions, but these colleagues, Munqith has been in the field for 27 years. And he, so all these centers are reputable, established. They have, many of them work with Gallup, they work with all these organizations. So the methodology that we use as a standardized methodology, whether it's CAPI or CATI. We do sample selection based on a population frame, the latest one, the latest census. We do it through systematic sampling. We do it through great deal of trainings. I know what they do in Kuwait, and I know what Firas does. We do a great deal of training, capacity building, monitoring, and now we do electronic monitoring, especially in Gaza, of course, everywhere, but also in Gaza. So we can, there was a question from Renit, I think. It's mostly about including Palestinians in 1948. No, we didn't include Palestinians in 1948. I think that was the question.
Yeah. Thank you. The question after that is more into the methodology and everything, and I think we talked about this, and we'll have to release a lot of, all the data will be released later on for that. Did you find slightly different results depending on the format of the survey? I don't think we, if anyone wants to give a quick answer, or should I?
What is the question?
Did you find slightly different results based or depending on the format of the survey, that is between CATI and CAPI, telephone or face-to-face?
Actually, we didn't run, this needs a study or a scientific research. We didn't have time to do that and to compare between both. But in general, we use the most practical way, as I explained in my answer to Robert's question. The most practical way to do the surveys. Look, ideally, we want to go through the best possible methodology, but things on the ground, especially when it comes to war zones, are not always allowing us to go with the best possible option. So we usually try to improvise, to do things within the limitations of the scientific methodology. But as my colleague Nader said, we all are so professional. We have been working for decades in this kind of research, and we understand and appreciate highly how important it is to follow the right methodology.
Great. Maybe I'll ask some questions from the chat so that I don't miss those. There was a question. Was there no question about the Israeli goal of the war?
No, there wasn't. I mean, the question, all the questions, when originally we formulated the questions, it was just a week after the 7th of October 2023. So we, at that time, we asked the most covered questions by the media. and the questions that people are more interested in it at that time. And when we came to 2024 survey, we stuck with this question to have a trend. That's why, and of course, as you know, for CATI surveys, we cannot have a questionnaire more than 10 minutes. That's the maximum that we can, for methodological and practical reasons. We don't have to go with long questionnaires, so we selected only few questions that we think that the people and the media are more interested in it.
Right. The next one, a question mark, is this academic? Are you asking for neutrality? Are you neutral?
Sorry, where is the question?
It's just, yeah, it's in the chat. If this is academic or not, if we're asking for neutrality.
It's not really a question, but go ahead.
Sorry?
No, I said it's not a real question. It's a comment. It's more of a commentary.
It's a comment.
It's a comment.
Yes.
So let's keep it at that. We don't talk about it.
Oh. Yeah. So the next question is, so the overwhelming majority of the population in these countries surveyed are anti-Israel, and everyone knows Iran is ultimately financing, arming, and masterminding the fight against Israel. Yet, support for Iran is in decline. What do you think the main drivers for this decline in the support of Iran?
Well, I think it's not only support for Iran and Hezbollah and even for Hamas. It's the confidence, not support, by the way. It went down. I think it's very natural that after all these casualties and all this blood, people feel sorry for their for seeing these humanitarian issues, especially with the massacre taking place right now. So that's why the people in the first 2 weeks after October 2023, some people thought at that time that this might be end soon, the casualties will be less, but I think after 1 year with this blood on the ground and with these massacres every day that we hear and see, of course, the confidence in these organizations and with Iran is going low.
The next question, how do you explain that confidence in Hamas is high and at the same time support for Hamas governing Gaza is low?
I think
we answered that question.
Yeah, he answered these questions. Yeah.
How do you explain that the fact that the lowest support for Hamas is among Palestinians, Egyptians, and Libya? Can you share the questions? And we will be sharing everything. How representative the sample is, I think we will be also sharing some information about that later on. Yeah, so the main question, how do you explain that the lowest support for Hamas is among Palestinians, Egyptians, and Libya? Maybe our friends from...
Yeah, thank you, Arwa. Thank you. I'll just probably just ask for Libya, but maybe Dr. Abdelhamid also could ask for Egypt. No, for Libya, unfortunately, they have a very familiar, and this is my explanation. Of course, we didn't ask in the survey any kind of a follow-up questions, but from my experience is that there's always been a low trust in, especially these religiously affiliated, we call non-state armed groups. So this is a kind of a more reflexive internal history that this has always been mistrust, despite there's come a lot of sympathy and support of what's going on. But of course, as a group, there's a lot of kind of a mistrust in these kind of like a non-state armed groups. This is from the Libyan experience, but also I think it's also been affected by the Egyptian media, which has also been very careful in kind of addressing this. That's for Libya.
I think Dr. Abdul Hamid can answer about Egypt.
Repeat the question, please.
How do you, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you explain that the lowest support for Hamas is coming from Libya, Egypt, and Palestine?
It has some historical reasons behind that. During the Egyptian Revolution 2011, there were lots of rumors. I'm not saying whether they were correct or not correct, that Hamas was responsible was helping the Muslim Brothers in Egypt, and also they invaded the Egyptian prisons, freed some prisoners. Against these rumors, most of the public, feel that Hamas was supporting the Muslim Brothers politically. And unfortunately, even though that we made more than 4,000 calls, the response rate was only 21%. People typically are afraid to answer questions regarding politics in Egypt over the phone. That's my
Thank you. Thank you. I'll jump in. I'll just, considering the high usage of social media in the area, why not include social media? I can quickly answer that it is not academic if we do so, and it's not representative. And this is very hard scientifically to do and to prove correct. How do you screen respondents? This is also, we don't screen them. This will come also later on. Thank you for the great panel. What are the most surprising variations you noticed across the countries? Are there any variations you did not expect?
Well, I think for the variation, the most significant variation that we saw is what has been just answered by Dr. Abdul Hamid and Dr. Nidal and Dr. Nader. The variation in confidence in Hamas, and this reflects how significant and important are such polls. Though it's there is a public opinion in general, there are some mutual answers in general, but still there are variations. So due to the circumstances of every single country, those who are affected directly by the war, as in Palestine, in Gaza, and they might look to the war from a different triangle than those who are thousands kilometers or miles away from the war, because it might not affect them directly. So the public opinion usually reflects the preferences and perceptions of the people based on their own evaluation to the situation. Yeah.
Great. The next is a comment, not a question. Thank you for the presentation. Is there any voice for the people from Israel, and are you willing to, did you talk to your fellow researchers there, and any plan for WANA to do such thing?
We will do that the plan is to go ahead with a next wave, inshallah, if it is possible to do that.
I have questions regarding the sample. Again, did you Palestinians of 48 know, and were there countries?
I think you can skip all methodological questions and comments because we have commented a lot about
No,
it.
but why did you choose Pakistan? Why did you include Pakistan, Libya, and not Saudi Arabia or Turkey?
Because simply we don't have colleagues there to do the research there. That's it. And in Pakistan we have a very good colleague and very strong and experienced colleague, Gallup Pakistan, Mr. Bilal Jilani there. So that's why we ideally we hope that we can cover all the region. But as you can understand, polling is not welcomed everywhere. In some countries, polling is so difficult and risky job. So that's why in some region, in my country, in Iraq, I have lost 3 interviewers who have been beheaded by the terrorists. So it's not always easy to do this job everywhere.
Great. Next one is a quick question. Someone noticed that most of the highest answers are coming always as the first answer, and he's asking if we randomized the options, and I think it was randomized.
Of course, yes.
I made sure what they are.
This is a basic. This is the basic.
Come on, guys. Come on. Just because we come from this region, it doesn't mean that we do not know polling. You know, these are professors who have been teaching polling for the last 30, 40 years. So come on, you know, I understand where is some of this coming from. You know, when it comes to minorities or people who are different, who are not Western, everyone starts questioning methodology. But you know, all polling has its problems. Look at the US, look at Europe, look at Israel, look at everywhere. So come on, let's keep it calm. But what I'm saying, what we promised to do for ourselves, not because someone wants us to do this, is that we are working together, all of us, and we're improving this. And we know there are gaps everywhere when it comes to polling and survey research. We know we're going to improve our methods. We already talked about more unification. We already talked about standards. We already talked about all of that. But on their own, go into the websites of these centers and you will find them some of the most sophisticated places on the earth. We don't need to defend ourselves, okay? But all I'm saying is that let's focus on the issues here, hopefully, and we're happy to put together, you know, one unified methodology, because that's an area that you're right, you know, you have the right to have a question on that. We will publish all of that for you on the website.
We will put up.
Nader, you remind me with a question that I asked my professor, my supervisor professor on 1990s, beginning of 1990s, when I was doing my PhD, and I asked him about the public opinion survey, and there might be some questions that not be answered properly, and there might be some errors here or there, or gaps here or there. And he said, okay, my son, I understand all your concerns, but give me a better alternative to public opinion survey. Just name a better alternative to public opinion survey. We understand as scholars that there are gaps here and there, and that might, but in general, that's why we are using good methodology, etc. But at the end, this is a social research. And social research doesn't mean that we have 1 + 1 means 2 necessarily.
I see.
Yes, Robert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Robert?
Well, yes. I think I have to remind everyone that our webinar usually ends in about 1.5 hours. So it's roughly the time that we wrap things up. But first of all, I have to thank AWRAD for going through all the questions for the floor. There are bound to be a lot more questions. I do have one. I hope it will be a simple one, and I would like to wrap it up with some suggestions. My question is really like this. You have done this, I would say, a very huge scale survey. And in your presentation, you mentioned the differences between countries, responses from different countries. But obviously, there might be more important factors. Academically speaking, maybe the young people have a different views of all the questions. Maybe whatever the age, but their exposure to, let's say, the media, to government messages might affect their attitude a lot, even across different countries. So I could see that this is a very fresh data set, and you might not be able to have the time to run it. So my question would be, do you have any further plan of using the existing data? Of course, you have set the limitations, but run a bit of more analysis, please.
Robert, the plan is to have more in-depth analysis and to publish a paper about this with more breakdown to different variables as age groups, economic groups, etc., to understand in depth and in a better way where are the differences, where are the similarities. As you know, this is what we usually do, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity since we are in October, still on October, and it has been a year since the war. We didn't want to miss that opportunity, so we speeded up the releasing the results in this webinar, and I'm sure that we will share with you more insights about this very important survey.
There was a question, where will it be published? Through WAPOR, I think we can publish everything, or what do you?
I'm planning, this is a plan that I'm still discussing with my colleagues, and I think we have a plan to do that. Of course, wherever we will release it or wherever we will publish it, WAPOR will have it on its website always.
Yes.
On the listserv, can be shared.
Do we have time for the last question we have, or should we wrap it up here?
I see Samir has raised your hand. You want to say something?
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Actually, there are a couple of questions. I just try to have a general comment. Some of them was asking or commenting about did we ask in a way that we said genocide in the questionnaire? No, we did not ask these questions, and this is logic that we will not. Even the name of the survey, we had struggled to say war in Gaza or conflict in Palestine, and we know that might impact or affect the respondents. Even in Kuwait, they are very supportive, and they are different than all of the Gulf countries. And I don't have to explain that. This is logic. And I see some questions asking Kuwait what they're doing, what's the sample. I will answer that. But just to say in a confident way, we have a similar questions even with Arab Barometer, which is funded by Princeton, Harvard, Kuwait University. We had 1,200 households. We knocked their doors. And when we ask them, how do you describe what's happening in recent events in Gaza? And we just give them a bunch of descriptions. Just tell us, what do you describe? 34% say genocide, and this is the top one. Massacre, 25%. Mass murder, 15%. Ethnic cleansing, 11%. War, 6%. Then the others are. So when we understand the region and I'm talking this not because I want to defend my result or the other colleagues' results. We know that it's sometimes a mistake even to say an average, and we discussed that yesterday with Nader and Munqith, and we say how confident that we are mixing apple and banana. We don't have that much funding like Princeton and Harvard. What I did is it's totally different. We used panel. But when I look at the result, we know that this is something logic. You guys, our friends from the other of the regions, you got to understand that this is logic. And even Michael Robbins, Amani Jamal, they're out in foreign affairs. America is losing the Arab mind and China is winning it. So you guys got to understand that the whole world and the Arab world have a different opinion. I'm talking this, trying to put it in a number. So yeah, I have some other comments, but and also I published on Al Jazeera based on Arab barometer that I mentioned, where you would not get surprised of some of the results. Of course, we know some difference between like Palestine, looking at the Palestinian Authority, we found that like Pakistan, they look good at the Palestinian Authority. We don't know why. Maybe because they don't know Arabic, they don't know the debate in the Arabic world, that they look bad at the Palestinian Authority more than like others. So this is different issues. We will leave it to you to explain it, but we agree with all of those comments that they are talking. What's your sample? What's your methodology? How you compare? How you are represented? We agree that we're not putting this in one piece. We will do comparative. We know that we have some challenges. The last thing about panel in Kuwait, I will be happy to share that, as I said, we are confident that it's similar results, but in panel in Kuwait, we use different projects for the World Value Survey, for Arab Barometer, for Chicago. We ask all the time questions if for our respondents, if you don't mind to contact you later. So we have our own panel. We also bought some panels from sampling countries where we'll send them some emails, and we did it. We don't say that's perfect, but we know that we're confident that the results are similar to what we did in household in Princeton and others regarding the overall results in in Kuwait. And I will be happy to share more details about the panels in the last minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think it's time to wrap it up. I learned at the beginning of this webinar that it might be a WANA culture that we could allow 5 minutes to start late. So I'm going to take the advantage of ending 5 minutes later. So we'll stick to the time of 1.5 hours. I think we've seen very nice discussions, very good questions, and they revolve around methodology and whatnot. I would think I should wrap up all the discussion this way. We are really talking, the topic for today's discussion is a research in the war zone, and it is a very sad event, and every one of us, including we researchers, are bound to be sentimental. As scientists, as professionals, we will always remember that we are scientists, we want the truth. So methodology, quality of data is our tool. We can do everything we want to, but at the end, the test of it is, number one, our transparency. So WAPOR has standards. Everybody you need to comply with standards. And I think the audience today will be looking, hopefully, into the raw data and the methodology when it is available with the highest level of quality and see what are the limitations. But there are bound to be limitations. So I think transparency is really one way out. And I will hope that the data for this study could be released, I mean the raw data could be released as soon as possible for others to work on it, to comment on it. But obviously after you are done with your most important research. With this transparency, everyone who has skepticism or have questions on the methodology side could re-study it and then ask the question, and perhaps in some conferences or webinars to come, dig deeper into it. Now with transparency, I think another quality is very, very important. It's really we ourselves as a person, as an organization, really stick to our own integrity and honesty, because we know the problem is difficult, but we do everything possible to reveal the truth. So I think integrity, honesty is important. And only time could tell, are you honest? Is your data trustworthy? Is it the best we could do in this limitation? So let's hold hands together and work towards that. I think the final comment I like to suggest is that I always go back to ask this question: why are we doing what we're doing, polling, and of course, in the war zones, polling different people? I think it's important, whichever way you look at it, from the humanistic perspective, that people's voices should be heard. Sometimes people want peace. Sometimes, of course, sometimes they want to fight, but let their voices be heard by everybody in a scientific way, open way, and let all sides of the conflict, I mean, people from all sides, even if they are bystanders, other parts of the world, let their voices be heard. And after they have heard each other, they might be able to think of some questions or solutions which the governments never thought of adopting them. So I think this is one way that we could serve humanity. And we, of course, serve it with the best of our quality, liberty, and this is our own profession. So with that, I have to say thank you for all the panelists, to WAPOR, WANA for really coordinating this event. Thank everyone in the audience. I didn't see you, but I could see on the questions, for raising your concerns and trying to be very scientific and helpful. So I just want to thank everybody and hope to see you again. But I don't want to say just farewell and bye. I would like to have our president, Munqith, to say the final words and then close this webinar. Will you, Munqith? There you go.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everyone, and hopefully we can have another event soon enough.
I think we thank you, Munqith, for taking the initiative to do this survey during the time when everybody.
Thank you, my friend.
Was.
Thank you for
thank you, my friends. We have 6 different colleagues who are wonderful, and they spend a lot of their efforts, time, money to come up with these results. Really, thank you and appreciate it.
Thank you for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, WAPOR.
Thank you very much. Of course.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.